Hello and welcome back to Where Are All My Friends? This week's episode is with my 2021 Spotify top artist, Ky Vöss. And episodes like this are really cool to me because I literally found her on a Spotify discovery algorithm and became obsessed. And then seeing her visual identity and how she presents the entire artist project from afar was really cool. And when I see stuff like that and then have the honor of talking to these artists and learning more about the story, it's really cool. And she has a really cool story. She's been through quite a lot and overcome it, and is at this spot now where she is finally living the dream of making music every day as an independent artist as her career. And I feel like stories like this are super interesting and inspiring for anyone listening. So let's get right into it. Here we go. Where are all my friends? Ky Vöss. I'm stoked on this one. This is every now and then Spotify just blesses me with my new favorite artist. And that's exactly what happened with this, where I was just shuffling through something and a song of yours came up and I was like, yo, what is this? And I shot you a DM and I was like, yo, like, would you want to do the podcast? And you were down. So I'm really honored. It means so much that you were down to take a chance and come on the podcast. Thank you.
Oh yeah. Thank you so much for having me. It's totally an honor and I'm very happy to be here.
Yeah, that's so cool. And I didn't tell you this, but I got like my Spotify recap, and Masochism was my number one song for 2021. So,
oh my God, you're number one.
Number one,
wow.
The most streamed song. Yeah. So
that is such an honor. Thank you so much. And thank you for telling me. That makes me feel really good.
Yeah. So good job on making good music, first off.
Thank you.
Yeah. So I guess typically where I start off is for anybody who doesn't know who you are, just a super quick explanation of who you are and what you do.
Yeah, sure. I'm Ky Vöss. I make electronic pop, dark wave, spooky PC music, kind of. It's ever evolving. It's ever changing. It's really just spooky pop at the end of the day. That's kind of like the biggest umbrella term I could give for it.
Yeah, I like that.
Thank you. Yeah, I make a lot of music. I make a lot of weird shit that exists within my music realm, and it's a great time.
Yeah, that was something that I was really interested in because I hadn't known you before this, and kind of like as the fan discovery, you find a song and then you're like, oh, cool, what's this artist all about? And then I went to your Instagram page and it like very quickly stood out to me that you had a vision for the project, and it was like this, I guess, spooky pop, but like continued on into your identity. And like, it seems like, are you independent?
Yeah. Yes,
okay.
I am.
Yeah. Extra respect then, because when an artist has that much of a vision and it's executed that well, and that's done by you, like, damn it, that's cool to me. And it feels like there's more than just the music. It feels like there's a full concept.
Thank you so much. That's a huge compliment to me. So I really appreciate it.
So where did it start? Like where did the beginning, like, did you do artist projects before this, or like, what was your life getting into music, or where was that moment where you're like, all right, yeah, this is it?
That moment happened for me like very early on in life. And I'm really grateful for that because it was never really like a hard decision to make. Like what do I want to be spending time on right now? It was always music. Yeah, so I started like when I was like 8 years old playing violin.
Oh, wow.
I wasn't, I was an 8-year-old playing violin, not like a prodigy or anything, but it was like enough like of a hands-on like way to like make sound for me to know like, wow, I like instantly connect to this. And I have like very early memories of like listening to my older sister learning violin in the other room and being like, whoa, like I want to do that. And like sneaking in and dragging the bow across the violin, like I'm going to do this. And I did. I like saved up for my first violin. And yeah, that was like my life for like most of my childhood. And then it was like towards the end of high school, all through high school, I like picked up guitar and a bunch of other like instruments in a very like casual way. But like any instruments that were around me. And I wanted to learn, I would just do that. And I started recording onto like my dad's like tape cassette recorder thing, and like learning how to like layer sounds. And I would like record something onto this, and then I would record it onto this like little Tykes recorder, and then I would play that back, and I would record that on here like while I was playing something else. And yeah, so I was like an early teenager then, and it was like, this is really chaotic. I don't really know what I'm doing, but I know I'm loving like layering sounds and putting things together, and I love this, so I'm going to keep doing it. And I did. I'm really glad I did. But things definitely like took a turn towards like a musical direction I did not see myself taking when I really wanted to go to school for violin. I wanted to go to like Juilliard or Berkeley or like a music school specifically for classical violin. And that didn't happen. And I'm grateful it didn't. Something kind of like uprooted my life, and I wasn't really able to do college applications or like do any of the college things really. So instead, I joined a punk band.
What? No way.
Yeah, my first band, they were very sweet. I played violin in that. So it was like a punk band on the like folkier side of things almost.
That is so fucking cool.
Yeah, it was weird. It was not a direction I like would have seen myself taking as a kid, but like it happened, and I'm really grateful because I was very like sheltered and shy, and the opposite of the kind of person who would end up in the environments I'm now ending up in all the time.
You know what's so interesting about that is
what?
To a degree, I personally relate to that. Where
Really?
Well, just in the sense of like, I was relatively sheltered and shy. Not to say that I couldn't function and I didn't have friends or anything like that, but like internally, it was something more that like maybe on the outside you wouldn't have known it, but I felt pretty shy, and I felt like I was, I don't know, like there were just times where I like didn't really know how to express myself, or I didn't like feel comfortable just like being goofy old me. And it wasn't until the first band that I went out on tour with where I was like, it's okay to just be yourself. You don't have to worry about what people think. Like I had a hard time coming to grips with that. And I look back on life as being so thankful for music and community and going to shows. And I kind of was like starting by like going to like punk shows as well. And I was mostly into skateboarding and cars. So like similar, adjacent, but not that. But it really wasn't until then that I felt like comfortable just being goofy and understanding that there were people like myself, if that makes sense.
Absolutely.
So like community is what that represented to me. Not to make this about me, but that's interesting that happened.
Yeah, I'm really grateful for that time. I definitely wasn't a totally authentic person just yet, because I was like compensating a lot for, as we all do, for like the just absolute insecurity that is being a teenager, the nightmare that it is. But I like, it took an unfortunate turn, and I had to learn the hard way about things like substances and what not to do with them and how not to take them and how to be careful. And I had to learn,
oh, wow.
Like, no, like you're grown up now and you're going to have to just how to deal with this. And so, like, I am grateful for that time that I had, living that life. But it hit a point where I was like, shit, I'm not really, this was cool. This is a cool experience, but I'm not really doing the things I actually want to be doing. I'm just kind of doing this because it's what I've known for the past, I think it was like 2 years into being in that band that I was like, I'm going to do my own thing now. Yeah. So I started my own band.
Wow.
Things were a little more like creatively in the direction I wanted to go. At this point, this was in Austin, Texas. And there's a really cool scene there, of course. And so I had fun like navigating, like, what do I want to be doing musically? Like I've got all this like random kind of half-worked knowledge in all these random instruments. And it was also at that point that I was kind of hitting a point with like some substance abuse issues, and I was in a really toxic relationship. And I just kind of like was like, you know what? If I don't like get out of this now, I don't know if I will. So I got out of it.
Holy crap. So like it wasn't just like
Oh
perfect
no.
like walk in the park path for you of like the early days of like teenage years, and
No,
you like
it
went
was
through
pretty
some
brutal. I
shit.
mean, everybody's got their own stories and backgrounds, and I don't ever want to be like mine was the worst of all of them, but it was pretty rough. And a lot of this album that's about to come out is about specifically that like time in my life where everything was just like so chaotic, and I didn't really have any support from like many of the people most people would rely on around that. I was just very like isolated
Yeah.
and confused and scared. And so yeah, that's a lot of what this new album is about, but we can talk about that later.
People that go through that it's so formative, and it can completely destroy your life, and like you can get to such a dark place, or you can go too far with substance, or you can get into like these abusive relationships or these like toxic people. And if you don't have the awareness of that, and if you don't do something, which is so much easier said than done, it can get rough. But then there's like the moments where it's like, okay, I got past that. Like I acknowledge that was totally fucked, but like you do something about it. And then those can be some of the most formative years that like help you define who you really are. So like, I'm always so interested when I meet people that have had those experiences, because they're sometimes some of like the most level-headed, smartest, emotionally intelligent people I've ever met, because they're like, oh, I've been through it all. So like, it's totally fucked, but it's crazy how much that can shape you and like make you a better person coming out of it.
Absolutely. I definitely know, like based on like those experiences, like I learned like what kinds of things to avoid in the future and what kinds of things to like talk about with other people and be like, hey, are you okay? Is this okay? Is everything okay? Like I'm grateful for that
Yeah.
perspective, but God, I'm glad it's over. Jesus fucking Christ.
Holy shit. Yeah, damn. So during that time in your life, were you still making music throughout? Like you
So
leave
yeah,
the
so I
punk
was
band.
I was trying, and that was like with my new band. We were still kind of playing shows. I still was talking about trying to make music, but I was just so like physically ill, like due to like things that were going on in
Yeah.
my life. That's really when I was like, I need to just leave to get out of this. So I did.
Yeah.
Um, yeah, I ended up in Pittsburgh somehow, kind of a little bit on accident. I told my bandmate, like, hey,
Okay.
I think I need to like get out of here for a little bit. Um, I'm having a tough time. I want to come back. We'll see. And yeah, then I left Austin, ended up in Pittsburgh. Uh, was kind of stranded homeless there for a little bit. Uh,
Oh my, you've been
well,
through
again,
it.
like
This hasn't been a walk in the park for your
no, I mean,
career
but
here.
again,
Holy
like
shit.
so many, I had so many things going for me at the same time. Like I mean, not really, but just like in a matter of like privilege, like I still had a lot like on my things that like kept me going that aren't able to keep other people going. And it's like totally worth like acknowledging, like with the being homeless thing in Pittsburgh. It was awful. It was cold. I lived out of my car for a little bit. It was awful, but it was not nearly as long of an amount of time in my life as it is for so many people that just like get stuck in a situation like that and then are just immediately like written off.
Yeah.
I was very
What kept
actually
you going in that? Like, how did you
um
like, yeah.
this is going to sound like such a god complex thing, and I think I'm grateful to have hit that point in this journey actually. um but actually the concept of Ky Vöss kind of kept me going because I wasn't always Ky Vöss. I changed my name when I got to Pittsburgh, and was like, I'm going to become this fake person. I'm going to, not fake person, but I'm going to invent this character, and I'm going to exist as this character to get through whatever the fuck is going on now because I can't be in this body anymore. And I won't lie, that mentality has not been the healthiest thing for me to live with all these years. However, it did absolutely, like without a doubt, get me through like some of the like most difficult things I've ever been through. Was just being like kind of pulling myself out of it's just a dissociation technique, really, but and also a bit of a mask. But both of those things can be really helpful tools when you need them, and I think it's kind of a it's absolutely a coping mechanism, which is what inspired my second album, Coping Mechanisms. So
Wow. So like all of your music as Ky Vöss, like everything you write is like you just being like, yo, like this is life.
yeah,
Like this is like very much using life as inspiration and being extremely self-aware of crazy
like I guess
situations
so.
you've been in.
Yeah, it's yeah. It that's like such a pretentious like. I wish there was a better way to like
I would say that's
somehow have a god
self-aware.
complex. I don't know. Thank you.
I don't know. I mean, like, I guess, like, sure, like, I guess you could make that point, but to me, I'm just like, I get it. I feel it. It's like you build this character, and then, like, it's not like you're lying to yourself about it or something like that. You're like, this is gonna like get me through this, and I can build this, and I can write through this. Like, I did an episode with Silver Sphere, and she kind of had the same thing as like when as an artist, like she is Silver, like this is a character, and like that's awesome because it lets you, when you want to be a character and you want to write as a
Mm-hmm.
character, awesome, and then when you want to use your own life, awesome. And it like, I don't know, if anything, it's like a wall to let you be creative without limits or
Yeah.
like
I
judgment, I guess. I don't know,
I
I don't
mean,
make music,
yeah, that
so
was huge for me because I had never made like pop electronic music before. And so I was also like at this time I had a laptop and I recorded one of my songs that's out on Spotify. It's called Bloody. That was recorded like from a car on my laptop on a headphone,
no
like
shit.
earbud microphone, and the other earbud was like broken. It was like that's how I recorded that song. And I was really insecure about making music like that. And that's like another reason it was a lot easier to be like to just like cut everyone off that I thought would judge me and just become this entirely new like identity and entity, I guess. And yeah, Ky Vöss made it a lot easier to start making like kind of corny, cheesy, like 80s inspired pop electronic beats. And I'm very confident in that style now, but like it was really like scary to break into. So I'm grateful to have had like a mask for the beginning of it.
Yeah.
Now it's just me. Now everybody knows me as Ky. But at the beginning of it, like I didn't fully like identify as Ky. I thought it was just going to be like kind of more of a like up front, and then I was still going to be like kind of behind the Ky Vöss thing, and I didn't know yet if I was going to like have that name full time or not, or like what that was going to look like. And then I kind of just adopted the identity as I realized like how empowering it was. If that makes sense. So
It absolutely makes sense. That's fucking cool. And I just think like there is a level, like maybe people don't always admit it, but I think it's very scary to create something and put yourself out there. And it's so stupid because so often, also all too often, people are so supportive and like, this is amazing, whatever. But like we're our own harshest critics. And to like go against that resistance and push past and actually put something out is
mhm.
scary. It's vulnerable. But I think it takes whatever it takes to get to that spot. And then once you do it and keep doing it, you're just like, all right, cool. Yeah, I'm good. I'm more comfortable with this. We're good. But I mean, maybe part of the inspiration of this podcast is inspiring and hoping that more people will try no matter what it takes, because imagine had you never even put something out. Like, damn, like what if you were a little too afraid to even build Ky Vöss? Like, fuck, that would have sucked. Yes. Also, other question, so you didn't go to college, but you had a laptop and a headphone mic and somehow still understood enough to put a song out. So are you relatively self-taught when it comes to production? Like, do you produce everything?
Like for the most, I mean, I produce everything. But like in terms of like getting started, my background with recording, like up until I was like a solo artist and on my own, was really like I recorded a really shitty EP for my band into GarageBand. And I had been recording my own tracks into GarageBand for a while and like learning how to like hit record on the different tracks. And that's pretty much it. And then just like come up with the layers and like loops and drums and all that. But it was like so base level because that's like all I needed at that time, because I was still playing a lot of like live music and it was like easy to recreate those songs by just recording the live instruments. Things started getting more chaotic when it was like synthesizers and you know, all of the processing and stuff. And that was really just like 90% YouTube tutorials, like hours on end of just like watching just, oh my God. I don't know if you've ever gone down that rabbit hole, but there are some douchey, annoying, cringy YouTubers out there, like making like the really broy ones that are just like, hey guys, what's up? Welcome to my channel. It was just hours and hours on end of like those on 2x speed so that I could make it through them. And then it's, oh my God. But once I got the basics,
Yeah, I had it with podcasts because I had never opened a DAW before. So it was just basic. It was like, how do I do like a vocal compressor when you're for just speech and de-essers and like basic things. But the YouTube wormhole is crazy because on one side, it's the best education. You can search anything and you can find very specific plugin tutorials. And I'm so thankful for that. But because it's YouTube and anyone can upload it, it's either like that, it's like the freaking super like, what's up, guys?
And they're making like, the most like,
yes, exactly. It's like Darude Sandstorm. Or it's like the people that are like so painfully slow and take so much time to like yes. And then you have the other side of it where you find the one person that's like your go-to, like the god of tutorials, and you're just praying that they've done a video on something that you're interested in because you're like, please, you're the one.
Absolutely.
Also, I would imagine from your story that you were telling me, did you have a moment where like young you that was like recording sounds and on a tape deck, violin, like did you kind of have a moment like getting a computer being like, wait, I can do what with these sounds? And like kind of like
I discovered Audacity on like an old, like, what is that? Lenovo, like, or Dell like laptop, a really big chunky one. It was probably like my dad's work computer or something. I don't know. But to just like the first time I like really realized you could like open a project and then so easily or just layer tracks, like that was like huge to me because my sister played cello at the time. So there was a cello there. I had a violin. My other sister played viola. So there was like lots of instruments around the house. And that's kind of when I started experimenting on all those instruments because it was like, well, I have these and I have this program. I can just record an entire orchestra if I want to. Like there's nothing holding. And then I started like learning, like using the really like cheesy presets on like an old Yamaha keyboard, like the drums, that it's just still just a keyboard and it's like the shittiest drum samples you could find. But actually, if I heard those now, I'd probably be like, damn, those are some sick 808s. And that happens a lot now. But anyway, 4 years ago, like, you know, it's like a weird progression of like loving something and then being like absolutely so embarrassed I ever did that. And then like, wow, that's the coolest thing I ever did. And then I'm sure it'll,
it's like it's like the brain meme where it's like it starts and like the brain keeps expanding and the final form of it is just going back to the
Absolutely.
Yamaha
I mean, my
loop.
friends, like one of my closest friends, like kind of like collects like weird old electronic like keyboardy things like that. And yeah, it's like like a very normal thing for people in my life to do now, and I absolutely love that. So yeah, that's how it started.
Yeah. So like finding like being able to do that self-taught, tons of YouTube, kind of just like scratching the itch of your creativity and like going down that wormhole enough to be able to record a vocal into an iPhone or an iPod headphone, whatever.
Yeah.
Yeah. That's cool. It's really cool how many people on the podcast, how many artists I've talked to that have had a similar path of like really having relatively no resource, but just being so creatively driven that they're just like, yeah, like I'll just record with whatever I've got and see what happens. And thank God that those songs get enough traction
Yeah.
that keeps
I
it
think
going.
that's like a big like factor for like really creatively driven people is like I don't think I would have been as into violin and music if somebody had pressured me to do it. And I think a lot of people who like grow up with like a really special skill or talent or perhaps like pushed a little too far with it, and people who don't have the same resources but still have the same like amount of passion will like more often than not like probably have to overshoot to reach the same like accomplishments as like somebody who's kind of had it just like handed to them, which is like I'm happy for those people. It's okay to like have resources, like I am very for those people. However, I am grateful for the fact that uh I I didn't I felt like I was kind of the only one who was like keeping myself going, and I was the one who was having to motivate myself to like new things. And I don't know, that was like a helpful thing for me, I think.
Yeah, no, it's, I very much feel you there. So you're in Pittsburgh, you're doing that, but that also still seems like, damn, like you're in your car. Like when did it start to get like better? Like when were you just like, okay, cool. Like I can do this. Like there's enough going on
Yeah,
here.
so it took about, it seemed like a lifetime at the time. And it's so weird looking back on that time because it was so like I dissociated so intensely into this weird entity that I like just straight up kind of blacked out a lot of that period of time. But it was in about
Crazy.
it was early 2018 that I like booked, I think, my first show as Ky Vöss. Like I decided, you know what? And it was actually before I had even really finished my first album. I was kind of just looking for a goal to like have music done, like music I could perform. And so I played my first uh well, I played like a show that I pretend didn't have. I feel like everybody like has like at least one show, like their first show maybe that they're like, yeah, that just didn't happen because it was like so like humiliating. I just didn't know what I was doing. So I had like one kind of like fumbly, really loud set to like a couple of people in a basement. And then a few months later, I came back with like a better, like I learned from like what kind of adjustments I wanted to make to my set and like how it would make more sense. And I ended up like on the ground surrounded in Christmas lights on a little rug with my sampler and like my mixer and some pedals and my mic and a really weird gremlin-y crouch position, just singing into the microphone. And that's how it started.
Where was that? Where
Pittsburgh.
did you
It
play?
was a
Pittsburgh?
basement called the Bushnell. I don't think they're called that anymore, but yeah. So that was, I think, maybe a year, something like almost a year, less than a year, I think. Like from getting to
Okay.
Pittsburgh and then finally getting a job, having to flirt my way into my first apartment because my credit was shit and nobody would accept
Holy
me. And it
shit.
took me so long to like find the money to put down a deposit. But like once I got that figured out, and it was a nightmare, I just was like, if I don't start trying to pursue the things I actually want to do, and if I don't start actually becoming this person that I now kind of embody, because I kind of felt at that point that like the person I was back in Austin, like kind of like died a little bit. Like that sounds really heavy, but like that, I kind of had to look at it like that to keep going, because it was just so heavy to just like carry that past with me constantly. And so as a freshly born Ky Vöss, I was like, okay, I can do this. I can do anything. And I started accepting every single show that I was asked to do. And at one point I was playing like a show every single week. And oh my God, that city probably was just so done with me by the time I left, because I really should have said no more. But I wanted the practice and the experience, and
the reps.
Honestly, like I don't think that I would have like been able to grow as quickly as I feel like I did if I wasn't like so actively like able to perform. And I'm really, really grateful for that. They were really, really kind over there. And yeah.
I think that that's like, I'm curious of what will happen with live music and artists right now, because you have so many people that have blown up just with the internet. And then especially you have last year and you have so much time of not being able to tour. But I think that artists become great when they spend a ton of time playing live. So yeah, maybe you played too many shows in Pittsburgh basements or whatever, but like, though every show you play, you get that little bit better. It's like that with anything, right? Like anytime you continue to do your thing over and over again,
absolutely,
you're inevitably going to get better.
I do feel like though, like some artists, like I'm the more I like see and learn, the more I'm learning just like how different like an artistic experience can be for different artists. And while I do agree kind of, because I experienced that and I feel like I grew the most during that time, or maybe not the most, but I grew a lot during that time and I learned a lot during that time. I do feel like especially given the last couple of years, like as we've had to adjust to the internet, like some people are probably just not going to enjoy performing out in the world. And I think that that is something that we should allow them, you know, to opt out of. Like, I think that's totally like personally and artistically allowed. I have extreme social anxiety, and if I didn't already have a background playing shows, I would find it very daunting. And so the last thing I want to do personally is like make anyone feel like performing is like an absolute necessity, because I don't totally think that. I think it could be really helpful and you can meet cool people and get your music out there and like build your confidence. But if it's like not the thing for every artist, I think that's okay.
Wow. Valid. One of the things that I love about doing this podcast is having conversations with so many different peoples who have different backgrounds, because it's so rad to learn and to hear all these different perspectives. And I love that you just like checked that idea, because like the whole time you were saying that, I was like, holy fuck,
I mean, it's a totally valid thing, like to be like, that's where growth happens. I do think that is where a lot of growth happens. I just feel like with the technology we have at our fingertips, like there are lots of ways to like learn those skills that don't necessarily like have to be exactly what they've always been. And I hope those things continue. I don't want live music to go away by any means. I just want it to be like, I always want it to be really accessible. And yeah.
Like the idea that somebody maybe would have never made music if they were like, fuck this, like I'm never going to play a live show, too much social anxiety. Now all of a sudden that person does have a chance to make a project that can live on the internet, and they can be on the internet, and they can have a face or not have a face and exist. Because you are right. Like if that's the goal and they don't want to do a show, there's nothing stopping them from having a successful career just doing that. In all reality. Yeah. Wow. You actually just checked me so hard on that there, because yes, like you can learn, and like you do, like I do think that there's a ton of growth in like playing live and kind of like over and over and over again doing that. But you're right. It doesn't
I mean,
have to be that.
the
Now
moral of the
more so than
story is
ever.
that I don't think it has to be like any specific thing. And like growing up as like
Yeah.
a very like technical classical violinist kind of thing, like I was like always being told to be very by the book by teachers and very like, this is how you do this, this is how you progress, this is how you do this. If you want to be successful at this, you have to do this, you have to do this, you have to do this. And so many times those things required money. They required like a lot more time than I was able to have because I like started working very early on. Like they required so many things that aren't like for everybody. And I think it's so cool that like music all around, but specifically like music that like you can in your bedroom like this, like how it's become so much more accessible for everybody. And I just absolutely love that. But yeah, no, I'm definitely like coming from a very similar headspace. So don't get me wrong. It's totally like valid to like have brought that up. I definitely used to be more on the same page. I also used to be like, electronic music isn't real music. It's just pressing buttons. And now it's like literally what I do. So yeah, it's all just learning. And hang on, my headphone came unplugged because I am very Italian and wave my hands around a lot.
I think it really added emphasis to the point, and I appreciate the commitment. So thank you. No, I like that though. And I think like, I always say that we're kind of in this musical renaissance right now where like you can be a hater and be like, oh, anyone can record anything and upload it to Spotify and music is being compromised. And it's like, nah, you're just like not accepting it. So to kind of further back my point to that, I think that it is a great point of like, doesn't have to be any certain way. Like, fuck it. Don't ever play a live show. Like, upload music all you want. So I really love your perspective on that. And it's cool that you understand both because here you are being like, yeah, it definitely shaped me and I got better playing live, but you don't have to. That's cool. So then you no longer are in Pittsburgh. You've played a ton of shows. You became very, very comfortable writing and recording and performing electronic music. Where, like, what's that next chapter? Because you're coming into now, you said right before we started recording, you have an album coming out soon for 2022, early 2022. And that's LP2. Am I wrong?
Yeah.
LP3. Okay. So you're in. You've hit a stride. So. You're doing the thing.
It really wasn't until I got to New York in July that I really started even making this album that is now almost finished, which doesn't seem like much time and really isn't. So I'm kind of shocked that happened, but
yeah, it's interesting though. Again, like just meeting you. It's interesting that a change of environment and being in a new city can sometimes inspire different music and different times and albums. Because again, I don't write music, but in the times in my life that I've moved, I very much look at these cities that I've lived in as chapters of my life, and they're all so formative and they all feel so different. So I wonder if that is some of it is like you're just in New York and then all of a sudden there's this different inspiration.
Yeah.
And it's just like, all right,
yeah,
cool.
It was kind of like that. It's kind of like I like had some realizations about some stuff, and I've been wanting to make a concept album about time traveling for a while. A very specific kind of time traveling. And so when I got, like you said, to a new city, it was like, well, it makes sense that I would like kind of jump into this new time in my life and like look back on these things that have happened and shaped me and like hurt me and grown me. Like it makes sense to be in a new city and reassess those things, like coming from the perspective of like me as a kid, except like now, like I used to be like, everything is really hard right now, this is awful, but I'm going to check in with myself in 10 years and everything's going to be okay. And it was like one day I was just like sitting here like, oh my God, I'm in that moment. I'm in that moment now. And I felt like little me, but suddenly in my New York City apartment where I make music full time, and that was all I ever wanted. And I made it. So we time traveled. I mean, I didn't make it,
so
but when I say make
cool.
it, I just mean like survived.
No,
I survived and I made it to the next chapter and we're here. We did it.
Yeah. And I think that that's also such a cool, like that shows to me that you're a real one, because like making it isn't like, oh, I ball out and I have all this money. It's like, I'm doing what I want to do every day. Like that's fucking making it. Damn. And I also love a good concept album.
Yeah.
That's cool.
I'm definitely a bit of a nerdy one about that. And it's kind of like a constant struggle. I have to like I'm like constantly like, I need to tone it down and then also make it way weirder at the same time. It's a constant and I don't know which way to go. So I feel like everything I do is somehow like trying to be both more like subtly weird and then also like, this is just kind of a weird project and I just want people to know it for what it is, I don't know.
Yeah. And I'm so glad too to have an artist like yourself on the podcast, because I think all too often a fan who really, really loves what you're doing might not catch every detail. And it's so cool to have an artist be able to explain that and have a space to just be like, yo, tell me about this. Because then when you go back and listen to the album, or not back now because it'll be coming out, but like when people now come to listen to it, they'll be like, oh, I get it.
Yeah.
That's it.
Yeah. That's another reason why I was like, yeah, I want to talk. It's time to talk again. Like I don't really, when it comes to like social media, I want to share things, but I don't really want to share everything. I kind of want this stuff to be sought out, like, I don't want to like constantly broadcast every little detail of the album, but like if somebody's into it, I want them to be able to like go on a little treasure hunt to like figure it out like via things on the internet and the story's there. It's just not like
it's not so in your face. Like, welcome to my third LP concept album. Here's every concept and here. I love it when an artist is an artist. I love it when there are layers to things. And I love it. Like my personal feeling towards social media and the state of things right now is everything is so dumbed down that maybe we're losing quality in certain products and people don't so much take pride in their product because it's so quick and everything is happening so fast and it's just more. So I think like the biggest fuck you to that is putting out an extremely detailed product with care and all these little subtleties and Easter eggs. So like I find it very encouraging and refreshing to talk to other people that have taken the time to like put real thought into a piece of work.
Thank you. Yeah, me too. It's definitely the term content creation being like coined and used regularly. I say it sometimes like without realizing like, yeah, I just got to make more like content. Like I fucking hate that word so much. But you get it. Yeah. At the same time, it's like, I see how we got there and it's like everybody is kind of just fighting to be heard. And when it's easy to make things and like get it out there, like things become more saturated. Like, of course, there's going to be like more, like less detailed things going out there because there's a lot of like beginners making things like me a few years ago, me now a little bit still like, there's a lot of people doing it and it's
necessary. It's a necessary evil. Like it has to exist and it does more good than bad. Like here we are talking and you can make all these connections and you can get all these new people that discover your music. Like Spotify algorithm connected me to you. So like there is more good than bad, but it's just, I think probably a struggle for a lot of people is finding the balance between creating content and putting more
Absolutely.
content out there and creating art and having artistic integrity. But I really like it gives me, I'm very inspired by people that still care about that, because it can be easy to get discouraged, at least to myself, when you see the low hanging fruit and like the things where it's like 1 million views on this dumb thing. And
Yeah.
you're like, perfect. Yeah, no, that's fine. All of this that I care about, all of this deep layers of meaning
It can
and
be
inspiration. Nope,
disheartening.
that's
Yeah.
fine. But I would say I'm more of a glass half full person, though. I tend to acknowledge that and understand it, but then still just stay in my lane and try to make
That's all
cool
you can
stuff.
do, really.
So without giving too much up on that album and like letting people still digest it, like how do I ask that? Like, you're coming into a new album cycle. That's an exciting time for an artist. What's been on your mind?
Yeah, it's been really exciting. Truth be told, given the like subject matter of the album, it's definitely like I say this about every album though. Like I really feel like I said this about Space Cadet. I was like, people aren't gonna like this, it's so dark. And then I made Coping Mechanisms and I'm like, people aren't gonna like this, it's so dark. And now I'm making this album and it's definitely the darkest of them all. But at the end of the day, they all sound like dancey pop songs. So literally nobody even fucking knows how dark they are probably. But
it's my favorite. Super fucked up, sad, dark songs with the poppiest electronic music.
Yeah, I might use that. If you see me using it after this podcast, you saw the light bulb go off as I said it.
Y'all heard it here first.
Like, wow, that's going to be my brand for the next 10 years, isn't it? Yeah, it is.
Yeah, you just said that so well. You just defined an entire genre of what I love.
Yeah.
That's great.
But because of that, like many of the people who hear the songs probably won't register like how like the deeper meanings that the songs have to me, and that's totally fine. But like making these songs really like destroyed me a little bit, and I'm very happy the album is done because I'm grateful to have been able to make it, because I wanted to make an album about that with that exact concept and about those things and get it out there. I've wanted to do that for a long time, and now it's done. And I can stop crying about it and make some new dancey music that's maybe a little less like specifically pointed at these horrible events that just destroyed me as a human. Like recording those songs and like producing them and just hearing them over and over again was just like, oh my God. Oh,
and then you're like getting the mix right, and you're just like thinking about it the whole time. You're like, this synth needs to come through here more, but my God, was I sad.
With the mix, I'm very grateful that my partner works with me on my mixes. He does most of the mixing, actually, like all of it. And I just like come in and I'm like, can we hear more of this now? More of this now? So yeah, post-production, the songs get sent to my partner, Sam, and he like levels everything. But that means that he is the one who has to hear the crying for me. Like the raw vocal stems. And he's like, why do these sound so weird together? And I'm like, because I had to stop between takes to like sob for a little bit and then come back to it. And I just didn't do a good job connecting the tracks. Sorry about that. And then I'll cry about that. Like, did you even know that happened? Did you not? Like, just like, I just wanted to know if you wanted to hear more or less of the vocal. And I'm like, just destroy it. Just delete it. Just make it go away. And he's just trying to help and make it sound good.
I love that so much.
Yeah, he's a gem. I really appreciate him. Yeah, great musician, great at mixing.
That's amazing.
Shout out to Sam.
Thank you, Sam. Much love.
Yeah.
Damn. Well, okay. So then, is it too early to have an idea of like when it's coming out? Like when should people have a general lookout
right now, the goal
it?
is February. This album has actually been pushed back like a couple of times because it had kind of a rocky start to it for some logistical reasons. Ended up trashing some songs, ended up adding some songs. It was originally going to be like a 6-track, like five, actually, was it like five? It was like a 5-track EP or something. And now it's 8 tracks. I'm going to call it an album because an album is easier to say than an EP, and I don't like inconsistencies in my discography, and I would rather say I have 3 albums out than I would say I have 2 albums out and an EP. So we're calling it an album.
Hot take. I would be so down with every album.
Me
being
too.
8
I don't
songs.
have
the fat.
the attention span to listen to a great work of art. Now, that's not to say the work of art shouldn't exist, and lots of people do like that. I just personally, I don't have any problem with 8-track albums. Like,
hear me out. We were just talking about artistic integrity and putting a ton of detail and care into music and what your product. That doesn't mean you need to drag it out. Like, it doesn't have to be this long thing for the sake of it. As long as it's one conceptual piece and there's thought and care and meaning.
Absolutely.
Oh, man.
I mean, like, I think if you write something and it comes out really long, hell yeah. But if you're like padding something with stuff that you're not sure about just to make it like fuller, like, you shouldn't have to do that. And that's the kind of thing that I'm trying to not do at all anymore. I'm trying to not do anything I don't want to do. And I didn't want to do that. So 8-track album.
I'm so in for that.
Thank you.
That's good. What about like, as you have played shows and tour, have you toured?
Yeah,
or
so
played
I haven't. The only shows I've played post like quarantine, all of that, is I just went on tour with Beach Bunny for a week, and so that was pretty weird. My last show before the global shutdown was at a venue in Pittsburgh to maybe 50 or 60 people. And then the next show I played 2 years later was opening for Beach Bunny in Richmond, Virginia to like a couple hundred people. And that was like, oh my God, I don't know if I was ready for this. Now I feel ready, but it was a scary jump back into things. But it was really cool. So
yeah. That's awesome. So you think once this album comes out, like, will you do a little bit of touring on it ideally? Or
I'm
like,
actually already booked to tour with Beach Bunny again in 2022. So yeah, I'm just happy to have the opportunity to tour a little bit more, even just as an opening act. And that's going to be fun.
Oh, that's amazing.
Thank you.
That's so cool. Yeah. And like, I guess to conclude this, in hearing your story, like, by all means, like, you had a crazy one, but if somebody listens to this and they relate and they're like, yo, me too, like, shit was rough, but I have this passion and this thing, and I just have this feeling I need to do it. What is your advice to that person that relates to that so much?
Oh, this is going to sound so corny and not tangible and doable. And when I was in that place, like, the last thing I wanted was somebody to like spout off some like Pinterest quotes at me. Like, you got this, champ. Like, that's not the energy I want to have about this. However, like, the biggest thing I would say to do is really to just do it and take it step by step. Kind of map out what it is you want to do and you want to be and you want to embody and you want to make and everything about it. I mean, I made a physical mood board for like what like the colors and like, or lack thereof, or the like just general world that I wanted to live in and like make, and like, how did I get there? What happens in this world? Like, what are we doing here? And then just like step by step, just like making it real. And sometimes that's really hard. Sometimes that's like selling something to buy a sampler or a piece of equipment, and that sucks. But like, if you look at it just like as a small, like, step by step thing, or just put it put it in whatever reality like you live in and wherever you're at the time, and just have a lot of compassion for yourself and know that like everybody starts somewhere, and the only way to do it is to just do it, and know that like people are excited that you're doing it, and people will be excited, and you got this.
Hang in there. The super cliche office
Nevertheless, she
the
believed.
motivational meme
or
photos
something
now.
like that. Like,
no, but I hear what you're saying, and I like that, and I think about your story of like being in the car and kind of inventing Ky Vöss, of like you had to just do it. And like that point where you're like the most afraid, like you can run away from it, but then that never would have happened. So thank God that you did just like step by step do it. And like, my God, did you make sacrifices, but like you did it. And now you're this far.
Yeah, I'm pretty shocked that I made it this far. And if I did it, lots of people can do it. Like so many people, I've had many, many very kind, sweet messages from people that have this attitude that I'm just like, I can tell that you can do this. You can do this. Like, I really believe that so many people could just do this. It's just something you have to decide to do and then kind of just hone in on it. So,
no, that's sick. That's awesome. Anywhere people should specifically look for you? Obviously, your music is everywhere. Can find you on socials, but anything else to specifically look at?
I've got a website with some merch up on it, kyvoss.com. And that'll also take you to all my links on all the platforms. Yeah, I'll be talking more about this album and like talking about the release date as that information makes itself known. I think that's it.
No, that's awesome. And I'll specifically say, on the line of merch, when you buy a merch from an independent artist, it is very, very much different. And that is like the direct fuel that keeps things going. So I've seen the side of that, and I know that. So that's awesome. And I've actually seen some of your merch. It's pretty sick. So great shout out. Glad you said that. Dope. Well, thank you so much. Like truly, it's an honor. It's so cool for me to connect with artists that I genuinely love listening to. So thank you for being down. Hopefully we can look back at this episode as this perfect little moment in time right before the album was coming out and you were in New York, and we can look back and be like, yo, that was just the beginning. Things got so much crazier. So I always love just capturing these moments.
Sure. Yeah. Thank you so much for having me. This has been really fun. It's been cool to talk about this stuff. So I appreciate it.
So there you go, Ky Voss's story. I hope you liked that one. If you related and you liked her story, definitely make sure to go check her music out. As an independent artist, any stream, any merch you purchase is directly helping them, and I really want to see her do well. So go check all of that out. If you like the podcast, I ask the same thing every week, but it's because it's so helpful. Share this with a friend, tell anyone you know about it. Word of mouth is the most helpful way for this to grow. If you want to support the podcast, you can also go to patreon.com/whereareallmyfriends and support there. But really just telling your friends about it is something that's so incredibly helpful, totally free. So go listen to some Ky Voss, tell your friends about Where Are All My Friends, and I'll be back next week with another episode. Thank you as always for listening.